Well, I think we should get started. We have a quorum. So I guess, Anna, do you want to call the roll?
Sure. Chair Raval,
Here?
Councilmember Hidakari,
Here.
Joanne Salome,
Here.
Kathy Feingold. Here. Lauren Berlin. Here. Chloe Thurston. Here.
Okay, we have a quorum and we can do our work. So before we get started, I wanted to, Yeah.
Councilmember Reed is online and virtual.
okay,
So he let's,
okay.
He's been promoted to panel.
Great.
Thank you. I am here virtually. Sorry if there was confusion with my message. I just couldn't attend in person.
Okay. So you can hear us, okay?
Sure.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So before we get into the agenda, I was going to just, go over, we have a whole series of kind of extra meetings, and I wanted to make sure they're all on everybody's calendar. So we have, Thursday, staff did a Google poll, and to find out, a good date that most people could come, and so that date is Thursday, November 30th, and it's at 6:30 p.m. And at that meeting, we're going to be, talking about the just cause eviction part of the landlord-tenant ordinance and the relocation assistance and that little thorny part of the proposed ordinance. Tuesday, December 5th is, 7 p.m., and we're gonna talk about all the other parts of the landlord-tenant ordinance that we have gotten through more or less, intact. And then we have a regular Housing Community Development meeting on Tuesday, December 12th, 7 p.m., and a regular, committee meeting on Tuesday, January 16th, also at 7 p.m. And then tentatively, if we need it, a wrap-up discussion and vote on the landlord-tenant ordinance, in order to send it on to City Council. So if you could hold that,
When would that wrap up meeting
that's,
be?
the 23rd, Tuesday,
Of
of January, right,
Okay.
yep.
So as of now, when is the vote scheduled?
Well, if we felt we'd done, we could conceivably vote on the whole package on December 5th.
Oh, good.
But,
Okay.
but I have a feeling this group has a lot to say, so, yeah. Okay, so now we're ready for public comment. Is anybody here to give public comment?
Yes, if you can.
Okay.
Right here.
Yep.
State your name.
Sure. I'm Sue Lolbach, I'm with Connection. And I just want to say I'm really glad to see in the goals for the city, how specific, affordable housing goals are, that they have, like, numbers and so on. I'm really, really happy about that. I will say the numbers feel low, particularly compared to the and so, joining will always press for higher numbers faster. So we encourage the city to be, to recognize the scarcity of funding, debt relief. And we also know that this affordable housing problem is not one that can be solved just by just using. So one of the things we'll be looking for as an affordable developed is, strategies and real effort, a focus, goals around strategies for more affordable housing developers.
Great, thank you.
Oh, I was gonna say something about pickleball and how do you evaluate the tweets.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
But, I think Councilmember Reed, that one really well.
Okay.
For the folks who are online and for the I guess maybe I'm the only person online, but and for the recording, if public commenters can step closer to the wherever the panel is. It was
Thank
a
you.
little hard to hear Sue.
Okay. We've got all manner of microphones set up, but I guess, yeah, it's tricky. Okay, thank you. So is that, I think that's it for public comment?
I do not have anybody sign up so far, from the audience or virtually, so if anybody else would like to speak up, do so now.
Right, yeah. We're all set.
Okay.
So last call for public comment. Okay, then, let's move on with our agenda. The first item is the approval of our meeting minutes from September 29th. October 17th. I'm looking at the wrong, yeah.
So moved.
So with the motion, oh, thank you. And a second, please.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of approving those minutes, please say aye.
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 Opposed, no? Okay, then we have minutes approved. So our first, substantive item is approval of a renewal contract for the landlord-tenant services with Metropolitan Tenant Organization and the Lawyers Committee for Better Housing. And that's for the, calendar year of 2024, and I think,
And we have,
I move.
John Bartlett, Executive Director
Right.
of,
okay,
organization that is here.
right? Yep, okay. So Councilmember Reed is moving approval, so we can get on with the discussion. So John, did you want to make any comments, or?
I can give a brief, overview,
Mhm.
and then if there's questions by the committee,
Right.
Jen will be available.
Okay, great, okay.
So we are in receipt of an application of renewal, for the contract for MTO and LCDH, the Lawyers, Committee for Better Housing, in an amount not to exceed $70,000, and that's covering the 12-month period from January 1st through December 31st of 2024. The base scope of work is $46,800, which is a flat rate, similar, the same as it was last year. $36,800 for MTO and $10,000 for LCDH, and that will cover a free hotline, in-person counseling at the Evanston Library, landlord-tenant inquiries received through the city's 311 system, which is averaging about 34 a month, and coordinating 6 two-hour trainings for Evanston landlords and tenants. You might see that number is a bit higher than what it was last year, but we wanted to hold off until the RLTO was finalized, so we could provide the most up-to-date information for tenants and landlords.
Mm-hmm.
So we've decided to, offload, 2 extra trainings next year, for that purpose. There's also an up to amount of $23,200, in additional services, and that includes $18,000 for a client-facing web application that's currently in development. There's also a texting option, that went live in September, this last September, and that is a 24/7, texting application that tenants can use at any time of day, and they will receive automated responses. And they'll get a live person after 24 hours. And so far, they've resolved approximately 20 cases through this text option, which was something that we wanted to ramp up last year. So, John is here to answer any questions
Okay,
that you may have.
so committee? Yes, Chloe.
I thank you, first of all, this is really helpful. I just had a question about the web application development. Is that a one-time sort of up to 18,000, and then like what would the maintenance sort of, requirements be? And then also, what's like the process for making sure that it, like troubleshooting and sort of making sure that it works effectively for the people who are hoping to use it?
one-time fee, and that, The only thing that would have to be updated then is the laws change. Regular, but it actually shouldn't be that much, you know. Application of the law that, you know, not having a developer.
I'll note that Councilmember Burns is in the call and needs to be made a panelist.
And to add to that, this is an application that exists already in Chicago. We're taking that infrastructure and making it applicable to Evanston.
Oh, so like we actually have, like
It
have the
exists
sort of
already.
Yes, we. have
markup
that.
or code or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not brand new. We have to wait, we didn't wanna do things too quickly if the law is just gonna change right away, or at least even part. Things are finalized and then.
Yeah, and to be fair, MTO was ready to move forward, earlier, a couple months ago, and we placed a hold on this, because
Right.
we didn't wanna have two efforts back to back.
Right, okay.
Can you share, what the URL is for the Chicago site?
www.squaretheways.com. So just, and the other thing that this will do is then help tenants actually just document. That's one of the issues that we keep coming up with, is that people don't put things in writing and they don't take pictures and all this and this. That's actually a
Other questions or comments?
Well, I think it's a bargain. I mean,
Yeah, it does sound
Yes,
like it.
right,
this is
yeah,
last year, yes,
yeah.
they do
right.
a lot for a small amount of money.
I had a couple of questions about, something I read in the materials. Talked about how we have more calls for termination rather than eviction. So what does termination mean?
well, we classify kind of, they're both evictions at the end of a lease. One is, how when either a month-to-month end or a lease ends and the landlord decides not to renew it. And other notice that we call eviction is actually when the tenant doesn't have the money to pay the rent and they get a slightly different notice, and we track usually that, I would say, most instances, that's a larger issue. In Chicago, it's 4 or 5 times more frequent than the,
Yeah.
We would also put in there a landlord threatening,
Say that again?
if they threaten to terminate.
Oh, right.
Because, and, I mean, we might put that too, also for a 5-day notice, the tenant's behind in rent and then being threatened with an eviction. So it's not all the time, but like, we're not in court all the time. Rest of that, but we have to figure out how to put it, so it's either in court, an actual notice is been served and it's going there, or it could be the threat of that.
Lauren?
Yeah, so I agree, this sounds like a bargain. I just had a quick question, I'm looking at squaredawaychicago.com, it looks great, I haven't had a chance to play with it yet. My one question / thought is like, you know, I'm acutely aware, especially in the housing space and financial services, of scams and frauds. And I'm wondering if there's a way to put something on the Evanston site that sort of says, endorsed by City of Evanston, something to help people know this is not a fraud, because it's not a .org, it's not a .gov, and it doesn't have any indication that it's not a scam.
We could do,
That, I think that
that'd
would be,
not, I mean, seeing that it's not made yet.
Yep.
so maybe that's something to discuss as a
Yeah.
city, but just to clarify, like,
Right, not a scam on it.
exactly.
Little flashing
Yeah.
light.
Exactly. Just like, that's a good suggestion, thank you.
And when we get that ready, we'll be running it by the city just to make sure everything.
Yeah, that would be great.
Councilmember Reed has his hand up.
Okay, great. Councilmember Reed.
Thank you. I, so one, just to go back to a question, that someone else had, or that Councilmember Ravel had, regarding, I'm
Termination.
sorry, terminations. It's a little hard to hear you, John, but essentially terminations that you're saying that those are essentially non-renewals, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And where did you say that this falls on the ranking of the, the call volume?
It's slightly higher than the, what we call regular eviction for non-payment. It's actually lower.
Is that number
repairs
1, number 2, number 3?
Well, I divided things up a little differently in that I put down, I think that the most calls were about, I believe, leases. Now that's just, questions, I mean, we have people wanting us to look over leases, make sure, or to figure out what they can do to get out of leases and things like that. That seems like that's higher call volumes that we get from. Repairs, I think, are that, and then come evictions. And the evictions are kind of broken down, and there's just a few more, termination, evictions than there are, non-payment evictions.
Does that answer your
Okay.
question?
I don't know, but so I have some concerns about what is being offered by MTO. I do have a number of residents who have reached out and shared that they've tried to get in touch with MTO, or that they were referred to MTO and just have felt as though their case hasn't been properly adjudicated. So I just want to understand a bit more about how MTO, about the process for a ticket coming in. I understand that, someone can call 311, a ticket is made. I want to understand, how long does it take from the time you all receive a ticket to the time that somebody is first contacted, and how many contacts do you typically have with someone? And then also after that, where are you getting, I'm pretty sure you're getting a lot fewer calls from, or maybe from the 7th ward than you are from the 8th or the 5th. And so I'm just curious if you keep track of data by ward, and what ward is getting the most or fewest calls. And if I can ask you to maybe, I don't know where you're standing in the room, but if you can walk kind of toward the center and speak there.
Mike is right there.
All right, so our goal is generally to get calls back within, 3 days, and I think we do get, somebody gets a call back. It doesn't mean that we contact them. I mean, we only call people back twice, and that's it. They need to call us back at that point, that we can't keep following people around to get questions. Certainly I know that I would just like, some of the issues, it can't always be solved to the person's satisfaction. Just that sometimes things are too far along, or that they're wanting a law to be different, and we can only tell them really what the law is. And in fact, that's, and even that's around leases and that we don't represent people. I mean, we give them information or referrals generally, and there aren't really any attorneys that represent people just around if they have a bad lease or something. So that's, I don't know about that particular situation. Certainly I'd be glad if you call or whatever, that I can always go over things that, about that. there is a map that we included, a heat map, I believe,
Yes, in the packet.
in the packet, and that's where that we're getting calls from,
Mhm.
and that we're told that to actually put it in a heat map rather than how many calls per ward map.
Mhm.
People thought that might be better, though we could, also change it into I can ask somebody to change it into a ward by ward map. And yes, we get, you can see kind of where the calls come from.
Right.
And they're, just a variety of, they seem that they are kind of located, I guess, in kind of the center.
As far as the response time, as city staff, based on the feedback we got last year, we did work with MTO to be able to put in place a reporting from 311 calls to track the first response, like first contact, to make sure it was within the contract agreement. The reporting isn't quite at a stage where I'm comfortable to share just yet, because there's outliers. As an example, when a first request is made and it's not clearly identified it's a landlord-tenant issue, it gets to MTO maybe a few days later, and that counts against their response time, so we're trying to figure that out. But the city has been happy to see that the response was often under 2 days, which is what often, depending on the months and situations, it was often
Yeah.
so from that standpoint, that's one feedback I can provide. It's not all the calls, and it's first contact.
Councilmember Reed?
Yes, thank you. I'll just say that I have a resident who has shared an experience where it's taken over a month for MTO to get back to them for a non-renewal issue. And so, this is maybe that's an outlier, but I've heard this enough from enough residents that I'm not saying the program is bad. I just I think I think that we need more interrogation. And I know Councilmember Burns you have your hand raised, so but I know Councilmember Burns requested some data, and I think has a number of questions that I'm interested in hearing too. So I'll stop for now.
Councilmember Burns?
Yeah, I just wanted to, so today we're just deciding on whether or not, to renew the contract
Right.
with MTO. This isn't a report, which we also review, on this committee. This isn't a report. This is just a renewal request
Right.
at this
So, and
point.
then,
Okay.
and then we get another report at 6 months, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we did report back in September, I believe, and there's one in early Q1. So every 6 months, usually we report out.
Perfect. And only say that because I know at the last, sorry, you can go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I bring that up because I know at the last meeting, one of the last meetings at least that I was at, we discussed having, we discussed adding different, having them report out on different things, expanding what they report out on, the scope of the report outs, not only for MTO but also for, I think it's SEPA that manages our inclusionary housing kind of unit flow, and I don't see that reflected in the packet. And so again, my understanding is that we're not dealing with the report today, only the renewal. So I'm happy to renew the contract, but want to make sure that those comments aren't lost and that the next report will see an expanded, list of things that we're reporting, that we're collecting and getting from MTO.
Right. And I think Marion indicated, I mean, you'll be reporting on what you're finding from the response to the 311 calls when we have this next update.
When the next report comes up, yes.
Yeah.
And I think one of the notes as well is the committee wanted to see both the issues, but also the core number of calls
specific,
Right.
was one of the notes we.
Yeah, and I think we talked about wanting to know the outcomes as well. Just more information from beginning to end, and what happened. What happens when someone reaches out. What happens from beginning to end, all the way to the conclusion of that engagement. And so I would either we could set up a meeting in between to think through that, or at the very least review the last meeting where we discussed this to make sure that all the comments are incorporated into the any future report. So that's one. Two, want to I'm doing a little bit of research on accreditation and trying to understand what some standards are for organizations that report out, not only the municipalities but other funding agencies, to help inform these type of discussions. More so, it's more relevant on the social services committee, but it's somewhat relevant here. And one of the things that they point out, which I mentioned in previous meetings, is just how important it is to get input from people who are from clients, from users, people who are experiencing the program directly. I know we touched on that many months ago now, and there was some discussion on how to do it and what some of the barriers would be or challenges would be. I then recall that Manager Stowe, in a conversation with Manager Stowe, he felt like there was a way for us to do it. So I want us to revisit that, not only for MTO, but again for similar contracts that we have. I think it's really important that we get user feedback so we understand how we can improve this contract and the engagement with MTO.
Marion, or do you have any comments about?
I will,
Okay.
I think that was similar feedback that was provided at the July meeting.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll be working on that for the next report.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Joanne, you had?
Yeah, I just wondered, do most of the calls come directly to you or through 311?
I would say more than half come through 311,
Oh, okay.
but some come straight to us, especially second calls.
Oh, well, right, yeah.
Then they start
They know
just having it, yeah.
They've already had contact with you.
Or if they've already had a contact even like last year, they just start calling. Usually try calling that same person that they got help with.
So you're saying sometimes with 311, they aren't sure where to direct it?
There's some, it's edge cases where there's an issue that maybe wasn't clearly specified, and so it was directed to one team or some kind of follow-up that's needed, and then we're able to identify, okay, this is definitely you, and then they get it right away. So I just want to make sure that as I report around response time from MTO, I'm not falsely impacting their number. That's rare, but we have small numbers.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Now, I know I've had a few people contact me directly, and then, we're transitioning on the 311 side to a different software, so is that data getting lost? Because I know, like, from my experience as like an IT person, like, it's like, you gotta make tickets, out of the data. Are we getting the data solely from 311 or
No.
also from MTO, and kind of combining those two?
We get reports from MTO around all
All the calls.
pertaining to Evanston, but what we get from 311 and what we're using for 311 is to be able to have a tool to track response time, because that was one of the, concern that had been brought before. And in that sense, that's the only thing we
That's
can
where
truly
it's like-
track. I will say that we do have a 311 platform training this week, and that I might uncover certain things, and we'll see how that goes as far as recreating the reports that we have or anything like that. So, yeah.
And I would be curious, I think, there would be ways to automatically create a ticket, So, like emails, because I mean, we all get a lot of direct contacts, and I know catch up with, you know, requests and things, you know, I don't have time to go in and like create a 311 ticket for everything. But that might be something that would be helpful to have, like email to ticket type functionality, which I think a lot of newer systems.
And the other thing is, if you're getting calls, you could give them the text number. Then you could, we'll get right back to them.
Other questions or comments? Everybody online happy? So then I think we're ready, to vote on, recommending this, renewal.
Roll call.
Yeah, please.
Chair Ravel,
Aye.
Councilmember Hedekari,
Aye.
Councilmember Burns,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed, Councilmember Reed, Joanne Salome,
Aye.
Kathy Feingold. Aye. Lauren Berlin,
Aye.
Chloe Thurston,
Aye.
motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move on also to the renewal of funding for our, to administer our inclusionary housing wait list. And you wanna,
Do you wanna have the motion and then I introduce?
probably a good idea. So someone make a motion to approve this renewal of funding.
So moved.
In a second. In a second.
Second?
Okay, thank you. Now we're ready.
So we have, Amy Kaufman tonight,
Yeah,
that
right.
is Director of Development and Community Relations from SEPA. I'm gonna give a very quick intro and then we'll do the same. If you'd like to, feel free. So SEPA is currently managing the IHO waitlist for us. The current renewal, request for funding is $70,000. It's an increase from last year. But there's also a pretty hefty increase in number of units. There's 30% more units coming, on the market next year, plus additional compliance, work for pre-IHO units, and as well as potentially our first homeownership unit, which obviously is gonna require, a little bit of additional work if those projects get approved. Additionally, there's been, the current year is going over, as far as, we're spending more than what the agreement was for, cost overrun, so far it's been up. That's kind of justifying, from staff's perspective, the request for $70,000.
So, committee members, comments or questions for Amy? Want to talk a little bit about the new units that are coming on?
Sure. So, as you saw in your packet, there's gonna be, we think, 21 new units during the course of 2024. And then an additional 15, units that will be brought into compliance. They pose, they're really different work channels. For the ones that you're bringing into compliance, there's communicating with the tenants so they understand that these units are being brought into compliance, and then, you know, you hope that many of them will income qualify for their units so that, they can remain in the unit. If they do not income qualify, then that is gonna be a unit turnover, not immediately, but they get a year's grace period to know that in a year, they're gonna have to seek market rate housing, because they would no longer qualify for that unit. For the new units coming up, that's the, you know, where the wait list comes in, and, making sure we've notified people of the opportunity and giving them the opportunity to submit full applications. Full applications are, require quite a bit of material, both for the client and for SEPA staff, because the great majority of people do not submit a full application. So there's a very large amount of staff time spent trying to get those applications complete so they can be evaluated and, as much as we can, put those residents in a position to succeed with their application so they can move on to actually securing affordable housing. And so it's different paths, but when you add that into the 72 units which exist, 72 units is a lot. It's a lot because every unit needs to either be income recertified or turned over during the course of the year. So if it's not a turnover, that resident's income has to be recertified. And if it is a turnover, that the turnover workflow is exactly the same as a new unit. You go back to the waiting list, you identify people who might be, interested. And then in addition to that, Marian and I and the team from SEPA spend a lot of time working with developers, both existing property managers and developers, and incoming, as Marian used the word she used the other day, which I loved, was onboarding the new developers, which is exactly right. So that there's no misunderstanding about the process and how the process works and what they can do to assist getting their units filled and, to express that we're all on the same team. We all want the units to fill. We want to lease the units. We just want to make sure they're being leased to the people who the units were designated for. And so that's, and in addition to that, there's all kinds of one-off situations that come up, but that's sort of the gist of what goes on. The waitlist update is being conducted now, so that number you see, 800, is going to go way down because after several attempts to reach people with a waitlist update, if they don't respond, they're removed from the waitlist. We never ever delete anybody's name. It goes into its own special little file so that if we made a mistake or if somebody tried to reach us and wasn't successful, we know when they were deleted, when they came on the waiting list, and if they have to get added back on, they can get back on in their rightful place. It happens very rarely, but it does happen, so we definitely keep track as we take people off the waiting list. So that's basically, yeah.
Of the units that are gonna come online, the 15, do you have a sense for the percentage of tenants that are gonna be income eligible to stay in?
We will when we get closer, because we'll get some information from the property managers. It won't be much, but it'll give us a little bit of insight. The ones that we've done so far, I would say about a third have qualified to stay in. Would you say that's about right?
Wow, it's that low.
Well, because these units,
Yeah.
so, if you had an income limit, say, of $50,000 on a unit, and somebody's been in that unit for 10 years, and
Yeah.
nobody's been checking the compliance,
Yeah.
and their income has gone up, or there's another adult in the household now. And so now all of a sudden, that income is $120,000 or $130,000, that person should not be in that affordable unit anymore.
Wow.
So that's why, because if you haven't had a that's why you do annual recertification, because you want to create long-term housing stability. You don't want them to go $1 over and then kick people out.
Right.
You want to create some room for people to have long-term housing stability. But there's the point of, when it gets to be too high, it's time for somebody to seek market rate housing, and that unit then becomes available for another Evanston household.
Makes total sense. And this may be an ignorant question, so please bear with me.
Sure.
How is it that these units exist, right, but are now becoming eligible this way?
So they predated the inclusionary housing ordinance, but they were negotiated as part of a public benefit, generally as part of a development. So the property manager / developer / owner committed to these units, but nobody was really checking along the way over the years.
There wasn't
So
inclusion.
now the city decided it's time for them, which they really don't want to be in this business, which makes total sense.
Got it.
Time to bring these units into compliance, and there's a lot of them. It's gonna add substantially to the amount of units
Wow.
available. It is adding the amount of units available for affordable housing, so that's how.
That's
Because they
awesome. So
predated
these 15 are not a one-time thing. You anticipate there being kind of
15
roll.
is a one-time thing, and I will say so this year, they're all kind of odd buildings not
Sure.
odd buildings, but odd situations that
Yeah.
happened pre-IHO when there wasn't a process in place. This year, I think we saw a couple of the buildings where we expected more out of compliance issues. The buildings that we're taking on this year's were, condo conversion building or other situation in different areas where we pretty much accept there would be very high level of compliance. Maybe not a formula, but due to where they're located and who they're targeting, we expect that the income compliance is good.
But in terms of the volume of units, you see this as an ongoing,
No.
every year you're gonna be rolling some in? So you guys are kind
No,
of,
we-
you guys are
we
kind
started
of,
this 2 years ago.
and you're
this is-
sweeping them all in, and this
Yeah.
should be the last
Yeah.
round of
Yeah.
having to bring them,
Because
okay.
everything,
We couldn't do all
Right.
45.
Totally
units.
get it, I was
Right.
just trying to cause it's
Right.
nice to get more units, so I was
Yeah.
trying to
Right.
understand if
Yeah.
we're getting more units
Yeah.
for a while.
I don't foresee there would be, more in future years, because we're essentially catching up and
Got
everything
it. You
moving
will
forward,
put them
designing
all
the
in.
building,
Yeah.
which is a lot
Right.
easier, because everything is.
Well, it's great, we're getting more.
Yeah.
So where are the 21? Are they scattered in different buildings?
I
Oh,
can answer
you're
that.
gonna do that.
He doesn't necessarily know just yet. They're part of the projects that are currently in construction that have been approved in planning development. So there's the main building, the Vogue, the development of the Vogue.
okay.
There's 12 units there. There's, 3 units at, Church Street. There's the Varsity Adaptive Reuse Building.
Oh, right.
It's all those new developments
Right.
that
Okay.
Mhm.
have been going
That's what
through
I'm just
the
trying to
process in the last year.
Think
They're
of
getting
other
built.
buildings in my head.
How many total units are going up at the Vogue building?
The whole development?
Yeah,
Oof, I can get back to you on
it's
that.
okay, I can
Yeah.
walk by and see him.
I think the project is on their website, so I can also check.
But 12 are coming in just through that project.
Yes, there was, my understanding is
deal.
there was 10 that were clearly affordable units and 2 that were public benefit. So there's 12 total that are affordable.
And the affordability can be
60%.
50%?
Yes.
Great.
How long have we partnered with, SEPA to manage the wait list?
Since the beginning of
Since the
the
beginning of,
IHO,
yeah.
because,
Which year was that?
which would be 2013?
The memo?
Something like that.
Is it in our packet?
I wrote the original policies and procedures for the first IHO, so it's
Right.
from the very beginning.
Since 2017.
2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it's been from the beginning, and it's not only Evanston that we hold the wait list for, that we do it for other communities as well. So when people go onto our website and they have a choice, they can check as many communities as they want, we'll put them on as many communities wait lists as they want. So give people as much opportunity as possible.
Yeah.
And typically, when a unit becomes available, how long is that process to find? Because I know meetings before we discussed how, a unit will become available and then folks like contact people and it doesn't always work out. Like, how long does it typically take to find the right fit for someone to?
It depends on it really depends on the unit and the timing. So, there are certain developments, perfectly honest, that are more desirable to the people on the wait list than others. So if you send out, if it's in central downtown and you send out, 100 emails, you're probably gonna get 15 or 20 responses. If you're talking about other locations that could be less desirable, you could send out the same number of emails and get far fewer. And so, that's on the one side. On the other side is, for as many people as you have on the waiting list, it revolves around when that unit is free, not when the person needs the unit.
Yeah.
So it's not like walking into the property manager's office and saying, oh, I need a unit, and the property manager says, oh, I have one. It's not how it works. The person is on the waiting list and they get notice that this unit is available, and they may be in the middle of the week. So, sometimes people have to wait until that match is found, and then they have to qualify, within the realm of, the minimum and maximum incomes. And many, many, many people often fall below the minimum income needed for, the units. SEPA does not set the rent on the inclusionary housing units. We try very, very hard to explain to the property managers and the developers, what is at stake when they pick their rent, which needs to come from a range, but we don't get any more specific than it needs to be in this range. The closer they get to the top of the range, the narrower the gap is gonna be between the minimum and the maximum income. And then the slice of people who are gonna qualify for the unit is getting smaller and smaller. Some of it depends on that too. If the developer really pushes the limit on that unit, there's not gonna be enough of a gap to capture tons of people from your waiting list. If they go, you know, further south in the income range, you're gonna capture more people. Sometimes they start at the top and then they learn that maybe they need to make it broader and they bring the rent down. But when they do that, we go back and we remarket to everybody so that everybody gets a chance again at the lower rent. So, you know, so it really depends. It can be really, really quick within a month, which I know isn't quick by normal property manager standards. It is in affordable because of all the things that I just said.
Yeah.
And getting a completed application and all the documentation, and then they have to go over to the property manager and they have to do their screening, and sometimes that takes a while. If you're a voucher holder, the property manager is waiting for Housing Authority of Cook County. So, you know, there's all kinds of things that can slow it down, and it can take a little bit longer depending on the desirability of the unit and sort of the readiness of the people on your waiting list. There's no lack of need, and there's no lack of desire.
It's not, the more I find out and learn about housing, it's not easy.
No,
Like,
it's
solving
not.
this is really,
This is what I was trying to say at our last meeting. There's
It's
no
never gonna
magic
be
bullet,
solved,
and
you're
every
right.
single decision has a consequence in another part of the market that's really meaningful.
But I'll tell you one thing I've learned in all these years I've been doing it, is it takes all of these tools, if people wanna sort of compare programs and what's effective, and it takes all of it. It takes MTO, it takes SEBA, it takes inclusionary housing, it takes all different kinds of development, and I don't know who said about being creative, but I agree with that. Who I think said it at the beginning. It takes all of the tools in the toolbox, and it's still challenging, so I agree. It's
And it takes recognizing there's nothing that fixes it.
But on the piece
for
that we can do, you know, to the extent you can make it work efficiently and effectively, that's a lot of people that are served by these units. And so you're at least, you know, you're taking some real affirmative steps, which is great. Yeah.
so you mentioned that sort of one of your big jobs is, helping people finish the application. And I had two questions. These are kind of informational, I just don't know. One is, who designs the application? Where does it come from? And the other is, are there, sort of, patterns and sort of points where people, like, typically sort of have difficulty? Or is it just kind of randomly distributed?
I'd say unfortunately, I'm gonna start with your second question first, it's very client specific.
Okay.
I would like to tell you that there are some patterns, but the things that get people tripped up, really vary greatly. We design the application, and our application right now, the pre-application is online, but the other application is fillable, but people are gonna have to upload or send in or come in with their supporting documentation. It's the supporting documentation that gets people tripped up, and it's mostly bank statements. I know that from working a lot on the ownership side too. Bank statements seem to flummox people, but our team is not going to be impatient with anybody. We will help people, or, you know, we'll do whatever needs to be done to help them, you know, get their materials together. There's a lot of applicants who live off their smartphones, and so, you know, that can be challenging too. So, you know, we have a secure way of submitting. Most people don't care, but we do. You do it online, you can mail it, you can fax it, you can drop it off. You can, you know, we make it as accessible as possible. But you really, it's really important that everybody be required to produce the same information, because we have to evaluate every application by the same set of standards, and so there's really no shortcut to that, to actually getting it done. But, you know, we hold a lot of hands as much as we can, and, but it is a process for people.
So your office is in Highland Park, but do you meet with people here in Evanston?
So our main office is now in Libertyville, because when we merged with, two other housing organizations, it pulled us a little bit further north. I used to come down to Evanston and, do some sessions at the library. Actually, I still do. I don't know why I said used to, but a couple times a year, if there were developments coming up, we'll come in person at the library. We'll hand out paper pre-applications. And that's very effective. We did a home buying class at Robert Crown in Spanish a few months ago. So, you know, we'll do any sort of in-person, activity. We don't typically meet with people one-on-one unless they really need. Usually we can do what we need to do by Zoom or,
Okay.
that's true across communities, by Zoom or, over the phone, or if we needed to, absolutely, we would set up an appointment and figure out a place to meet. But that does not come up that often. We don't get that request very often. Yeah.
All right.
So this is all very interesting. First of all, thank you for walking through so many of the details. I feel like I should know it already, so apologies for that. You said something, and I'm gonna guess this is a terrible idea, but I'm just curious.
Okay.
In the school of, like, there's no bad ideas, I wanted to throw it out there.
There we go.
You know, you said that some of the waitlist management depends on the timing of the unit coming on the market, right, or coming up available. I was wondering, like, is there any value, you think, is there any pattern of demand? Like, could we say something like, oh, you know what, the units that can accommodate having a child or children, like, we see the demand spike in spring, so maybe we should, you know, artificially force those, let them be empty a month or two, whatever, push them into this demand zone we know about, so that we can, it's not a thing, though.
You know why? Because in Boston, for instance, everybody's lease ends September 1st, right? So in that case, you could time your units, because that's when the leases turn over in Boston. In
Just
Chicago,
standardized.
in Evanston, and in all of, people's leases are random. So really, the timing revolves around, am I stuck in a lease, and is the unit available?
Okay.
So, and that's unfortunately, it's
Yeah,
random.
of course, yeah, totally. And then my one other question, I'll stop with it. I had thought that the developer actually had to sort of declare the AMI it was going for on the unit, kind of at the time, but you're saying that's a living
So
decision?
the ordinance was changed, and it's,
Yeah, so I can, any new unit is gonna be 60% AMI.
Right, as a max though, but they could go down, right? They could go to like, if you wanted to serve 50% AMI,
you would do that though by adjusting the rent, so that more people would qualify.
yeah, okay.
So really it becomes then what's the minimum income? You don't have to change the AMI, the developer could just say, okay, instead of charging $1,300, I'm gonna charge $600. Well, if you charge $600, you'll capture a lot of people who are at lower income.
And that's what,
so-
so we were talking about with the minimum and the maximum and the pie narrowing.
We have a wide variety of income level because we've gone through, iteration of the IHO. So we have 60 and 80% unit, and then on top of that, we have pre-IHO buildings as well, and other kind of buildings that were approved that aren't falling in those. And we have a range from 50% to 120%. And one of the challenge, like, we're trying to see what can be done so that some of those higher income units can potentially become maybe lower income, in the future.
Evanston really did a brave thing, coming down to 60% on all of the
Yeah, it's a
units.
really
It's
hard market.
Yeah, I wish, frankly, every ordinance in every community we worked in would max out at 60%, because that's where the need is. I don't care which community you're in, I don't care, it's all below, you know, but the majority of it is below 60%. And, you know, people that are making 80, 100, 120% have other options.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll look at ownership, you know, there's affordable ownership opportunities too, but I really think Evanston should pat itself on the back, because I think that was a real leading kind of change to make, to max it out at 60%. That benefits the residents.
Oh, absolutely benefits residents.
Well, now, excuse me, why would voucher people be on the wait list?
Because they want to have the opportunity to live in these new units too. And they want, because that's where they would like to live, and because we have, Cook County always had source of income protection for very many years, but now the whole state has source of income protection, so, they have to, you know, developers have to take, vouchers. Unfortunately, the housing authority of Cook County is slow, and so some of the developers get so happy when they're waiting for the paperwork to be done, but there's not a lot that we can do about it. We don't control the housing authority.
Yeah, I've had Section 8
Yeah.
renters.
That's terrible, because those vouchers already have so much stigma, and then to have this like operational hurdle on top
Well,
of
they're
that.
it'll get done. It just takes a little longer.
Yeah.
You have to be patient, because voucher holders need apartments too.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
I'm ready to vote.
Councilmember Burns
Yes.
and Reed have their hands.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So, go ahead, Councilmember Reed.
I just want to say that I am in support of this, and I just want to say that I really want to highlight that I appreciate you. I appreciate you highlighting that the need for policy action here and the cost of inaction, essentially, in other communities for not enacting the 60% policy. And I just want all of us to keep that in mind, that there is a cost to action, and there's also a cost to inaction. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Burns?
Yeah, I had a question that I think was responded to. It was the same. I thought we were at 60%. So when I heard range, that was concerning. But what I think I heard is we have some units that where that agreement was set before the inclusionary housing ordinance was updated to 60%.
Yep.
That
Okay.
is correct. Those are older buildings, and we're actually working with those, property managers on those units with deepest collaboration. There's, the vast majority of the units are 60% or 80%. And as new units come in, they're all 60%, so obviously that's gonna start skewing more and more towards 60.
As older, you mean in the program longer, not old buildings.
Well, older is relative, age is relative. It's older buildings compared to other IHO, compared to, they're the initial buildings that had
Right, that's what I
affordable
meant,
units.
initial buildings,
They're
not
not
by
old,
age.
but they're older than the other buildings.
Oh, okay.
And
They're still
and
present.
I would
Go
imagine
ahead.
we have IHO agreements that we sign with developers, and so assuming we have those, do those agreements allow room for us to renegotiate AMI levels, or is this all voluntary at this point because it's not necessarily spelled out in those agreements?
That's linked to the plan development ordinance when the building was approved, so it's all set in there.
Okay.
We are actively working with some of those owners and actually are hoping to bring to you and city council one of those cases, in Q1. So we are negotiating, but it is, technically voluntary.
Okay. And then wanted to just go through the report just to make sure I understand. So let me see.
The
So
report
existing.
is, and I just want to preface this, the report is simply the report that was provided back in July. It's not been updated. It's the same
Oh,
report
this
that we
isn't
discussed
updated.
back in July
Okay.
for reference.
Well, I guess I still have a question though. So it says, it looks like there's 70, is this saying that there's 72 inclusionary housing units?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And then it says qualification process, and then there's some addresses and numbers. What is that chart or whatever mean? What is this
So-
explaining again?
That chart is specifically tracking, the buildings that are in the process of being leased up, newer buildings, to try to understand kind of how many applicants are being sent by SEPA, and what's the result of those applicants that were, eligible. Did that turn out on that? Did they turn down the units? Is the developer turning them down? Like, what's the result of that? So it's tracking that essentially. Were they approved, was the unit filled, things like that.
Okay. Okay. And then so it says IHO existing units by building, and then affordable units by building. If you add 49 and 24 up, that should be the same as the 72 number, or no? I'm just trying to make sure.
It should. I've got to take a look. Yes, it should. And the reason
Are we one off?
Yeah, the reason there's two different charts is because we split the building, because originally we were only including the IHO buildings, but it was somewhat misleading because some of those buildings are not IHO building. They have affordable units. We're bringing them in the program, but they're not technically part of the IHO. So we made that split, so that it's a little bit more clear. I'll take a look at where the number is off.
Yeah, I think it might be one. There may be one unit off. Yeah. And then it says new upcoming units in the pipeline, 31.
Yes. So,
what is that? What is that number?
That number would be technically the number that would be included in this contract had one of the projects that was originally approved for construction not panned out. So the 21 units that we're talking about, including in the 24 agreement, are part of those 31 units. It's just there was one project that was approved and isn't getting built.
And so I guess is the 31 new units, new construction units that have never been rented out.
Yes, they're in the
is it
pipeline, but they're not. Yeah.
Is it also units that people have moved out of that are
No.
now vacant or no?
No.
Okay.
New construction.
Just new construction. Okay.
That will be added.
Okay. And then last question. I was trying to. I heard a piece of this, but couldn't catch it all. That there are like new units that predated the IHO or something like that. I want to make sure I understand that. Can you explain that again?
So, of the new units coming on next year, let's just use that as an example. The 21 units are in new buildings that are going up in 2024, and those units, well, 2023 and 2024, but the units won't be ready until 2024. So that's Vogue and Church and a few other developments that come in, make up the 21. The 15 is a reference to a group of units that came about before the IHO existed, and they were part of public benefit for those particular developments. And so they've existed for a while, but nobody had been checking compliance to make sure that annually that the people who were continued to lease those units were in compliance with the program. So over the last 3 years, SEPA has done a batch of those units each year to bring those units into compliance. This is the last batch, 15 units that pre-existed the IHO. And as you might not have heard, it's a little bit of a different workflow from the new 21 units because we have to income certify the existing tenants in there. Some will stay, some will have to move. The ones that have to move, those units will be released to people who qualify.
And so there was, before the IHO ordinance, there was some other program that developers at that time opted into that similarly required some of the units to be rented out at an affordable price. And
no, there wasn't a program, and that's kind of what's the heart of the issue, is just it was part of the discussion as part of their development being approved, but there was nothing formally structured. It was right before, like around the time the IHO was bubbling up and starting to happen. But those are, that was before there was a program.
So it was part of just a public benefits agreement, or?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Part of the plan development ordinance.
And so I guess when that ordinance was passed, what level of detail was provided? Did it say what AMI, or obviously how many units? Okay.
How many units and what level AMI, yes.
Okay.
And oftentimes those were much higher than what we're working with now.
And these are going back to what year at the latest?
I will have to get back to you to give you a specific number. A lot of those buildings are at least 10 years old, but I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay. And we don't feel like we're missing any units. We feel like we have a good good account for all of these units?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. So, everybody ready to vote now?
Yeah.
Okay, then could we have a roll call?
Chair Ravel,
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd,
Aye.
Councilmember Hirakaris,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Joanne Salome,
Aye.
Kathy Feingold,
Aye.
Lauren Berlin,
Aye.
Chloe Thurston. Aye. Motion passed.
Great, thanks very much, and thanks,
Thanks,
Amy, for
everybody.
joining us.
Thank you.
Yep. Now, would someone make a motion to, so we can discuss and approve the recommended city affordable housing goals?
So moved.
Okay, great. So in the packet, you saw, there are, how many? Six goals, affordable housing goals that the council developed as we were having our goal-setting meeting. And so the idea was to basically check you know, are we on target with these goals? And just sort of reaffirm for council that this looks like the right direction for us, so I throw it open.
I
Yes,
just have a
Joanne.
question.
Mhm.
On these, NOAA, does that include single-family and apartments, or is it mainly apartments?
Do we have a,
I think, we have a
oh,
staff.
sorry, okay,
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
I just jumped right in.
So
Okay.
I'm just gonna introduce, Yuri Patcher is our senior housing planner. Yuri has joined the city in August. He's got a master's degrees in city and regional planning, specialized in housing, equitable planning, and community engagement. He's worked in nonprofit, consulting, and government sector in North Carolina, California, and Evanston and Chicago area. And, back in 2019, Uri was, part of the Affordable Housing Plan Steering Committee, as well. So Uri's gonna be working on a variety of housing projects. We're very excited to have him on the team. And that includes the future inclusionary housing ordinance update, the comprehensive plan, and the Cook County Joint Equity Plan to permanently further fair housing.
Welcome.
Yeah, right.
Nice to see meet all of you on the committee. Gonna kick it up to a much higher level than we've been at the last hour or so, and have lots of slides with not a lot of information because we're at that point. So, the city goal focus areas are six. There's affordable housing, climate, economic development, finance, public health, and public safety. And I believe, 4 of those city council sent to, the committees that are relevant for each of those. So this committee is gonna be discussing affordable housing. 2 of them, I think, stayed with council. And so if you just wanna go to the next slide, city council's gonna be discussing and approving the goals for all 6 of the focus areas December 11th. And so today, we're focused on affordable housing and looking at the 6 goals, approving to recommend those to city council. And so the 6 goals, Councilmember Burns, you have your hand up, just want to flag that if you wanted to chime in.
No, it doesn't look like it's up on my end, but let me try to
Devon.
figure that out. But no, please continue.
Yeah.
Okay, so the six goals are, 1, ensuring 50 units of affordable housing are in the development pipeline for 2025. 2, beginning in 2024, increasing naturally occurring affordable housing, annual rehabs to 20 units. Currently, that is 9, and rehabbing 25+ units over a larger 17-month period of January 2024 to May 2025. 3, including equitable zoning concepts in the city's comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance by 2025. 4, creating a strategy to develop city-owned vacant and/or underutilized properties into affordable housing by 2025. 5, amending the inclusionary housing ordinance, increasing the inclusionary requirement in 2024. And finally, completing a strategic housing plan in 2024. So these are the 6 for the committee to discuss and support.
Kathy?
On number 2, not sure I fully understand what resources would be available for the naturally occurring affordable housing and how that proposal would play out.
Here, I'm gonna kick that one over to Marion for this one.
So that would be the housing rehab that's funded through CDBG, in collaboration, and actually you'll get, you'll review the application and request for funding for next year's program at the December meeting. That's a program that, Rob Anthony at SEPA is helping us with. So that would be that. We're putting 20 units because historically we've had a goal of 10 to 12, which is kind of what's realistic when we talk about single condos. We're hoping to raise this, A, because it's needed, and B, because, as you know, this year you've approved, a rehab on a multifamily building, rental, building, and we're hoping to continue that if possible, because we see that, a lot of the lower income housing is rental. So that's that.
Has that been a restriction in the past to do multifamily?
In the past, there was not a restriction, but not a formalized process in the recent times because the committee felt that they wanted to prioritize those funds for homeowners. So not necessarily restriction, but we'd like to see if that can be,
So how dependent are we on how much CDBG funding we have?
well, we're sitting on a little bit of funding due to COVID. We had some funding in previous year that wasn't necessarily fully used because, homeowners stopped renovation because of delays, because of a host of reasons. So we have some funding, and we can talk about kind of the allocation at the
Oh, right,
next
okay.
conversation. There's all the program income that comes in as well that helps fund this program. So, I think there's about $500,000 right now that's potentially usable.
Okay. Lauren, were you about to say something?
Yeah, thank you. On point number 4, I was just curious, does the city actually own a lot of vacant or underutilized properties that realistically become affordable housing?
So there are a variety of types that could qualify. So there are parking lots, that, could be underutilized or seen as underutilized if you're looking at housing as a more preferable use than housing for cars. 2, there are other assets that, could be converted or, could be seen as underutilized. I won't name any in particular, but just looking at all the different buildings that the city owns, there are potential opportunities. And actually, I think, in July, the city was selected as one of the few communities to be part of putting assets to work, which is an initiative that, is a competitive process. A few cities are selected each year, and the city will be working with consultants to provide basically some evaluation of all of the properties that are submitted that are city-owned, and then, an initial strategy on those. So we're actually already ahead and moving forward with some initial work there. That probably won't be the end of the work, there's probably more coming out of that, but we're teeing that up.
Is that a federal program? What
It's,
is that?
there's a couple nonprofits that are foundations that fund it, and I'm blanking on it.
That's okay.
It's the government, it's a consortium, and there's someone who did a lot of work in Salt Lake City previously, similar to this, and is leading the initiative.
Aren't we to get the report in like March or February, was that the
I know it's
timing?
I know it's a 6-month timeframe. I'm not sure when the counting starts. I know they've started the very initial process, so it sounds approximately right, yeah.
And I actually know of a lot that could probably take 3 houses on it that's, right now it's grass, and I'm sure the neighborhood loves it, but anyway, so there is actually, you know, a place where we could do this, yeah.
When I look at the number, and I know the South Boulevard development, all affordable. So
Right.
if we find one opportunity, we could meet our goal with one. Now, do we have a list of developments that are already in the pipeline? Because I know because that would be a lot of inclusionary housing, like, because we can't get to that number just by doing inclusionary housing, right? Because typically, like, how many inclusionary housing units do we get?
Well, we're getting
Well,
21, and we were supposed to get 31. 31 were approved, 21 are getting built. Not, if we're talking about things that are in development at this time, in the timeline that we have to be, like, that's kind of why there's those deadlines, because in one case, some of the units that need to be done by 25 need to have been already well underway.
We start improving that, because it takes at least 2 years.
Well, there's construction,
Yeah.
so essentially it's kind of like what's already kind of in the works and slowly happening versus what is Lori and the team gonna work on strategically approach.
But also, did I understand your question as saying, if we're getting our affordable units just as inclusionary units in another bigger development compared to South Boulevard where the whole
Yeah.
project is?
Because if we're looking at typically, so that would be 3 developments, right? We said we were on track to get 30 new units, when development didn't happen. So typically, we don't have that big a development, usually they're like 10 to 12 units, right? So we need to get at least developments or developments that are all affordable. We have, I know there's something that we can hear more, but then do we have an idea, like what's coming through land use with possible inclusionary, like, they'll come when they come, right?
Right, yeah,
So,
yeah.
I think just to add, it could be 100% affordable or inclusionary. There are other scenarios, but the bulk of them are gonna come through those two. I think a lot of these things are interrelated, of course.
Yeah.
So with a stronger inclusionary housing requirement, if that bumps up, then hopefully receiving more. With a better strategy, whether it's an overall housing plan, comprehensive and zoning ordinance update, and the strategy around underutilized properties, hopefully that's also leading to higher potential and stronger expectations around what's possible moving forward. So I think we're trying to like bridge that gap moving forward.
Councilmember Burns.
Oh, okay, Councilmember Burns.
Yeah, Councilmember had a comment. Were you talking about the 50 units? Is that what you were referencing? Is how do we get there in 2025?
Pipeline. They just have to be in the pipeline at this point, yeah.
Yeah, and talking to Sarah about this, I don't know if Sarah is here. But I thought we were looking at things that are not currently in the pipeline, but getting things in the pipeline to really try to push ourselves to get some stuff moving. And I think we should set goals around things that are not in the pipeline currently. And if we need to push the goal out to a 2026 goal, I certainly would be comfortable with that. Because again, anything that's in the pipeline is already in the pipeline, right? There's not much work to do there.
Yeah, we can't count it if it's
We
already
don't
in the
want to take
pipeline.
credit for things that are already happening. We need.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I just want to make sure that's the case, and whether we keep the 2025 as the goal or push it out to 2026, I'd be comfortable with either. Or I just want to make sure that we're really challenging ourselves to get new units in the pipeline. And to that point, there are, as Councilman Ravel said, she knows of some city-owned property that might be able to be developed. I know of several in the Fifth Ward, including the new kind of Jackson and Emerson property that we recently acquired, and demolition is finally finished there. That's over an acre of land, and and we have some opportunities to continue to look at kind of strategic land acquisition to gain more property that we could use for affordable housing. So I think there's a lot of existing opportunities as well as future opportunities. I want to, with number 2, I want to make sure that we're prioritizing what I would consider our truly naturally occurring affordable housing, as in property owners that are pricing their units affordably. There are some property owners, and I support them as well, but who really seek out people that have vouchers, and they get much closer to market rate rents than the owners that just price their units affordably. And the difference is that obviously it is difficult to obtain a voucher. Everybody doesn't have one, of course. And so I think it's important that we find a way to make sure this money, especially the CDBG rehab money, is going towards people that are truly providing naturally occurring affordable housing. So I just wanted to bring that up. And equitable zoning concepts, I think that is it for now. Yes, that's all. And then Ori, I don't know if you were gonna go over the strategic housing plan, the slideshows that we went over a few days ago, or if we're going to save that for another day. But I just wanted to, I appreciated or maybe you did earlier. I just want to make sure that the committee had an opportunity to see that.
I'm happy to provide a little more context now, and then, can follow up with that. Basically, the idea for the strategic housing plan is thinking about the comprehensive plan and the consolidated plan, which sound very similar, and that filling a gap in the middle. So the comprehensive plan, we're at a unique opportunity right now where that's starting. We have a contract with a consultant, and that process should wrap up early 2025, as mentioned in goal number 3. That is a 20-year time horizon, so we're looking at 2045, and focuses on land use, planning, zoning, housing, arts and culture, health, transportation, lots of things. Housing is one piece of it, but it's not the only piece, with 20 years. And then the consolidated plans are 5 years, which also is going to be happening this coming year, which is specifically housing, but even more focused is dollars that come from HUD. And we put together a 5-year plan. And so the idea is we're focusing on a subset of housing dollars for a 5-year period, and we're looking at housing in many things for a 20-year period. And if we can look at housing overall, whether it comes from the city, whether it comes from federal funding, other sources, collaborating with partners, and over a 10-year period, we can be more focused over that period of time and have the consolidated plans sort of slot in as following through with that overall strategy. That's the general idea, and this moment in time is unique because it's a lot of work in 1 year, because they're all happening in 1 year, but it won't happen again for another 20 years.
Yeah.
Like an eclipse.
Lauren?
Yeah, I just had 2 questions. One was, so I think on this point that we're all interested, I'm curious how we came up with 50. I think that I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, but in the nice burgundy suit, laser, I think encouraged us to be ambitious given the scope of the need, which is obviously very large. And so I'm curious how so I have two questions. One, how in number one, the figure landed on was 50 units? I'd be curious to hear that. And then two, I just thought it was really interesting when Councilmember Burns asked about point number two, because I come primarily from a homeownership background as opposed to a rental. So I read number two is really related to like subsidizing homeowners who want to rehab, but it sounds like that's actually multifamily and not single family, so based on Councilmember Burns' question.
It's primarily, number two?
Yeah, 'cause she was saying,
Primarily
you know,
single family.
It is single, okay,
We did one building this year that was multifamily.
that is still single family, okay.
And we're looking to see if we can continue that, but, yeah, the majority of the.
Okay, I might have misunderstood it, because I thought that's what he was talking about, was voucher holders. Okay, so then I would be curious what the 50 is, how you guys came to 50 on point number one.
I'm gonna look into that one.
Sure, so as far as the 50, when we're talking about in the development pipeline, my understanding is the number came from, which projects were either in conversation or feasible by 2025, when we're talking
Yeah.
about a year's time, what's the estimate that we could gather from potentially, an update in the IHO or other fully affordable projects that could potentially happen by then, essentially.
Yeah.
My understanding is that we're starting set goals with a short time frame, in that it's supposed to pave the way to also increase goals, particularly with the work around the strategic development, the housing plan and all that.
Yeah, and I guess the one other question and answer here may be like, yes, of course, Lauren, obviously, but like, I just wanna make sure we're thinking about, we're pulling all the levers, and this is where like, I'm not super familiar with municipal financing opportunities for affordable housing, right? But I'm just thinking about like, to, the point earlier about like, is all of this coming through the inclusionary housing ordinance, right? Like, is there any other thing we should be thinking about sort of in the toolbox to bring more units in? Like, and you guys may be like, yeah, we already spent like 400 hours having this conversation and this is what we came up with, but I just, in the spirit of doing my job, wanted to check.
No, I think that's a good question, and I think, not to point back to one of these elements again, but I
Please,
think,
yeah.
but I think the strategic housing plan, is a way of coalescing a lot of conversations that have happened, with stakeholders internally, that we have lots of tools available and we're using lots of them.
Got it,
But
yeah.
trying to make sure, are we doing so most effectively? What's the impact of the dollars that we're spending? Can we look at a longer time horizon and a short time horizon? It's hard to get 50 units in a development pipeline in 2 years without other pieces.
Exactly.
But if we're working on that regularly, hopefully in 2 years from now, let's say, we can come with a little bit better data and say, we feel really confident we can get this number because of X, or
Yeah.
there's a gap here, we don't know how we're gonna get any because the market's performed in this way.
Yeah,
So it's sort of yes and.
Yeah. I have my hand.
Okay, sorry, Sue had a question, quick comment, and then Councilmember Reed.
Okay.
I'd like to just consider
I can't hear Sue. If Sue can.
Yeah, right.
So I'm sorry I didn't notice this before. I feel like there may be one little piece missing here to get to your point, in that, we need subsidies too. We need support for people who need housing right now and can't wait for these new units. And that's something, the city does participate in, but, it could be very useful to have a goal there. I also do think it's probably for the later, for the affordable housing plan, but I think it would be interesting to look at, have a goal around getting more buildings like the South Boulevard, maybe at, each of the train stations or something like that, but a bigger goal where we're looking at increases in bigger increments.
Okay, Councilmember Reed.
Yeah, no, thank you, and thank you for that, Sue. Two things I wanted to layer on. One, to Lauren's question, I appreciate your line of thinking there. I want to note two things. One, the Finance and Budget Committee has been loosely discussing the possibility of using bonds to fund affordable housing. We have not. We traditionally use that for capital improvement. Councilmember Burns made a referral, and myself and Councilmember Harris have co-sponsored it around this issue. And so I think that's one innovative way. And that also segues into my main question, which is around the strategic housing plan for 2024. I'm curious to kind of hear a brief kind of outline of what are the key components of that plan, and then I'll ask my second question.
Sure. I don't have that right in front of me, but the main thrust of it would be to be action-oriented, not doing a bunch of new stakeholder engagement. A lot of stakeholders have actually been engaged, and it's important for the city to rely on that engagement that's already taken place and sort of have staff pull that together and then come back to some stakeholders and say, based on what we've already heard, are we on the right track? Has anything changed in the last year or so to make sure we're fine-tuning this? A shorter process because we want to get aligned quickly and then continue acting and not have it be a long research-oriented process, but one that leads to action. So it would be at a high level, looking at goals and objectives, looking at specific strategies so that all the tools in our toolkit can fit into there, looking at current finances and budgetary restrictions, including more optimistic and forward-thinking assessments of what's actually needed on a financial side to achieve the goals that we're looking for. A lot of focus on implementation in terms of like an implementation matrix that would also include non-city actors, not forcing anybody to do anything from the city, but really partnering and expanding our reach. And I think those are the main components in general that we were looking at. Definitely open to having further conversations about what that looked like before we get started.
Okay, yeah, no, that's helpful, and that also what the reason I asked that is, again, going back to Lauren's kind of line of thinking about how did we get to 50 units. I really want to see us. I want to see us create a goal and of what are we looking for in total, for how many affordable housing units and at what levels do we need. And I think there's a way to calculate that. I think we can, just make a decision, whether we took today as, our city today as a, freeze point as a baseline and said, well, if we have, 10,000 jobs available that are, jobs like Jewel and Walmart. We don't have Walmart, but Target and, whatever the case may be, Whole Foods, those kind of retail jobs, McDonald's, those, lower wage jobs, and we need those services in some case. Then, I think we can determine, so how many of those jobs do we have, or how many of those jobs do we expect to exist here? And if it is our wish that we want everyone who works in Evanston to be able to afford to live in Evanston, I think, for example, that could be our, kind of a North Star for how many affordable units at, 50% of AMI or, 40% of AMI we want, and then find metrics going up the scale to, all the way up to more than 100% of AMI. And so we can find what mix and what balance we want. And I really want us to, if we can figure that out in 2024, I would like us to do that.
Would that fit in Would that fit into the strategic housing plan?
I think, yeah, I think that would be, yeah, I think that would fit into the strategic housing plan.
And yes, Alderman, Councilmember Ravel, I agree. We were looking at sort of a 10-year time horizon. That doesn't mean we can't have a bigger, that was sort of the horizon for implementation. But I think because we want to have a bigger vision and goals, it could be a longer time horizon. And in the next 10 years, this is what we're looking to do to move toward that.
Okay. Joanne?
Yeah, years ago when I was on the Housing Commission and the project, and I can't remember the name of it now, what they called it, but all those townhouses and the apartment building that went up across from Foster School. In Brinshaw Development, who works in low income and nonprofit, there's a lot in the 1900 block of Gray on the east side of the street that they never built. There were a couple of townhouses that were supposed to go in there. And I'd asked Sarah a couple of years ago, can we make them do something with that lot? It's been sitting empty, 10 years now, probably. So there's a lot, but can we make Brinshaw do something with it? So, I don't know.
I'll have to look into that. It sounds like that might be an SB 2 scenario, and they probably, I think they submitted for a certain amount and only received a partial portion of it.
I mean, they did a lot,
they
did. I mean, they rehabbed some houses and stuff too, but that lot has just been sitting there all this time.
Right, is that in the fifth ward, like across?
Yeah, it's 1900 block of Gray.
Okay.
So, like I think the second lot in from Emerson.
Because I think, when we discussed this last year, and I think the plan for there was like a development plan, and a lot of it required,
No,
like
it's not, this is just a lot.
Is this a lot?
Yeah, it's just not connected just a single lot, and they bought it as part of that, and
I think you're thinking.
Plus, I know a person who owns a lot, another vacant lot where I was gonna list it at one time, but didn't, so. The lot would be, off his hands at this point. But, yeah, this was just a separate piece aside from, the other area where there was the playground and the road and everything that's gonna go through. So, no, so this has just been sitting there all that time.
Right.
I don't know if that's what it's.
Add it to the
Second
list.
lot in.
Right, okay.
From everything.
Yep.
Noted.
Any other thoughts or questions or comments about this?
Yeah, I had my hand up. I don't know if it's still up.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead,
No,
Bobby.
it's fine. I just wanted to make sure I'm understand too correctly, because I got a little confused with earlier comments. So my understanding again of naturally occurring affordable housing is that would apply to rental units. Is that correct?
It's naturally occurring affordable housing rehabs. So,
But you can rehab a multi-unit property, and I think we should be doing that.
we're talking about, so up till now, the program was, majoritarily single family and condos based on the committee's feedback.
Right.
The committee this year has, approved the rehab of a multifamily building that is rental and that, is affordable.
Okay.
And we are suggesting that we would like to continue this trend to split the funds between some affordable rental rehabs as well as the single family and condos.
Yeah, so I think we're in agreement. I'm just saying when I hear naturally occurring affordable housing, I'm not thinking of a single family house. I'm thinking of a multi-unit rental property. And so when I saw this, I saw it as exactly what you just described. I just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page, that we want to, yes, continue to provide CDBG the deferred loan program for single family homes, but also we want to increase the amount of multi-unit rental properties that are receiving this funding as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Yep.
I think the
Perfect.
confusion
Go ahead.
I think the term is traditionally applied to single family, which is why there was confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see,
Right.
and I didn't know that. When I hear that term, when I've heard that term, it always applies not to single family homes, but to for
Yeah.
rent, multi-unit properties. In fact, this is the first time I've heard it referred, referenced
In the
to a
context of a
single
single
family
family
home.
home.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same thing
Oh,
for
that's
me.
interesting. I've
Yeah,
never heard it. Well, hey, we're doing it with both, so it works out.
You're both right.
Either way.
Right, yeah.
But that's
That makes-
perfect. That's
that
exactly
explains
how I understood it. So thank you, Mary. Appreciate it.
Great, okay. So are we, ready to approve these goals and send them back to city council? I guess we
Call for the question.
what?
Oh, well, I
Call for
think,
the question.
well, I'm
Whoops.
sorry, Chair.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Councilor-
I would like to, I hear, Sue in the need to potentially add a seventh component to this, which is on, folks who can't wait for, the potential of 50 new units to be created, folks who, can't wait on the increase in the units to be the help for naturally occurring affordable housing units. So, or for us to amend our inclusionary housing ordinance, they can't wait on that stuff. And so, I want to move to add a seventh goal. Well, first, I want to add a seventh goal around creating more direct assistance, whether it be vouchers or whatever the case may be. I guess I'd like to hear from either my colleagues on the committee or Sue what the specific goal might be. So I'd like to open, if I can, open that for discussion.
Oh, yeah, Sue, do you have a suggestion for us? Since you brought it up, right?
I think there's two pieces to it. One is, there just needs to be more money.
Right.
So I don't know, I haven't looked at what's in the,
Affordable.
consolidated plan and what's coming up, and if there's even capacity there, for anything like that. It could potentially be used for, some of the leftover COVID money, I don't know. Something to consider with any of the monies that are currently available.
I think I've got maybe the goal could be, and I'm sorry if it might be cutting up if someone else is speaking at the same time, apologies. But maybe the goal could be to have the seventh goal being explore and implement or explore opportunities to provide direct rental assistance.
Yeah, I think maybe that's it. Look for new ways. The state right now is considering some new programs that go beyond what homelessness prevention does, that could potentially be good. There's a huge need for more permanent supportive housing, which is a kind of subsidy that also has funding for services. And so I think, maybe a project over the next 2 years, and probably part of the strategic housing plan, to really research and see what are the other mechanisms that are out there, because the whole landscape is changing very, very quickly. I think on the flip side of that, it's really hard for people with the main kind of subsidy, vouchers, to use those vouchers in Evanston. It is really, really hard. We have people at Connections all the time who are losing their vouchers because they can't get a landlord to cooperate with them long enough to go through all of the approval processes. So, we try to work with them, but, it's partly a fair housing issue. It's partly a, do we need incentives for landlords? Do we need to cover landlords' costs during the month of rent, they inevitably lose if they agree to take a voucher holder. There may be some things we can do to really incentivize that use of vouchers, because people who have subsidies can't use them right now. So I think, maybe, it requires money, so, it all does.
Right.
So,
So can that be, could we have a, sort of a second part of the last goal, the strategic housing plan, that it includes identifying new sources of funding?
Well, I think, the strategic plan, I think, is a longer term. I think these, and so, one, yes, I
Well,
do think that,
it says 2024, complete a strategic housing plan in
yeah, I think
2024.
completed in 2024, but it, is that at the end of the year in 2024? That's just at some point in the year. But I do think, and really these goals for council are our 2024 goals, because the election comes a few months after 2024 ends. And so, I want to move to have us include a seventh goal to explore additional options for direct rental assistance. I think, this is not the final place. These goals will still potentially be refined by council when they come back. And I think Sue and anyone else who's interested, we can all get together and maybe have something, a better goal, a seventh goal when it comes to council. But I think we can put that there as a placeholder to show that this committee is interested in council exploring more direct rental assistance or housing assistance options. And or the goal, conversely, could be spend more on affordable housing than we spend on pickleball courts annually. But I think
Is that a motion?
it is a motion.
So if that's a motion, I'll second it, and then I'd like to speak during this discussion.
Right, sure, go ahead.
I just want to say, if it's exploring, I think it belongs in the strategic planning process. Ori and I talked about this along with Liz Williams. I think Ori's, I think the reason why their team came up with strategic and not like affordable housing plan is the whole point is not only for it to be actionable, but quick. And so if we're exploring, that needs to go, in my opinion, in the strategic planning process. If we're trying to act, right, if it's a certain dollar amount that we want to put into rental assistance, we don't have to recreate the wheel. We already have it. Connections for the Homeless has received funding, city funding, to run a successful rental assistance program for many years, right? Sue, isn't that something Connections has done and continues to do, not only for Evanston, but funded by other agencies? So, but I agree, we can figure out what the action is from between now and then. But if it remains
correct,
exploring,
my goal is to get an action. My goal is to have an action for us to, So that is the intention here. And I think, as you were just highlighting, between now and whenever this comes to council for final approval, we can work together to refine that goal.
May I,
Yeah, yes,
may
go
I
ahead.
just provide
Sure.
some kind of staff context? Because a few things were brought up. So we have some, rental assistance through our different program based on the HUD funding that we receive. And that's under ESG and Home TIBRA. However, those are federal funds. And what we're finding more and more in the Evanston market, and that it's becoming more and more difficult because it's with specific restriction and rent prices that are increasingly difficult to find in Evanston. So when we talk about outside of that, we have a little bit of affordable housing fund that is dwindling fairly quickly. So if we're talking about adding a goal around direct subsidy, and based on everything that's been discussed, having an understanding of a source of funding that could fund those direct subsidy
would be good,
Right,
because
right.
we're relying
Yeah,
only on federal funding. That's gonna be very challenging, and I'm not sure that's truly possible based on the restriction those federal funds have to actually have an impact.
Right, and I think that's part of the why I used initially the word explore. But again, these are I want to be clear. These are council goals and meant to hold council accountable to taking action to make sure that these outcomes occur. And so I think this puts the onus on council to find additional sources of revenue to fund direct subsidies. And I guess, on council, and then ultimately, because this body is council's body, one of our actors or one of our co-conspirators in finding out how to do housing related initiatives. I think this body will ultimately play a role in that as well. But I think it puts the onus on council to find new revenue for affordable house, for specifically direct assistance.
Add something to that?
Okay.
I said, I don't know what the boundaries are here.
Right,
so
right,
I
yeah.
apologize. I like that direction, and I think because the landscape is changing so much, and I think there will be some new sources of funding
Mhm.
for subsidies. Maybe the goal is something like, by the end of that 2024, have a full understanding of what those new sources are, and, be at the front of the line to acquire some of that new funding for subsidies. I can phrase it in a much better way.
Yes, I will.
So you're proposing a goal of like understanding the shifting landscape for non-federal subsidies,
Yeah.
given that the gap with the restrictions on federal subsidies in this market makes it.
So
I would say,
identify
if I were
new,
gonna phrase it the way I want to, I would say identify.
identify new sources.
Identify new
of
sources for
funding
rental
for-
assistance
yeah.
in the Evanston market.
Yeah, I think that's because that's an
I will-
action. That's what I was saying. The
Yep.
explore is something better fit for the strategic plan.
I withdraw my
Identify
motion and
different.
make that motion.
Yeah, 1 second, please. It's our job to appropriate. So let the council figure out how to get the money along with staff. But we need direction, I think, from this committee to say, hey, go out and find it. However you find it, go find it.
So can the motion be, can the seventh goal be identify new sources of rental assistance funding?
Yes,
That,
I move that.
okay.
And to put a date on it, you were
yeah,
saying by
it-
2024,
yes.
which means by the end of 2024.
Right.
Or in 2024.
In 2024, right.
I'm just curious, Sue, what are you thinking of when you say that you think there are new resources coming online? I know I'm sure we're trying to wrap this up. I'm just curious what you're thinking of.
So the, Illinois Interagency Council on Homelessness, one of the things they're looking at right now is a new subsidy program that, goes beyond what homelessness prevention does, because homelessness prevention doesn't provide a large enough subsidy to, support people the way they need.
Yeah,
So
okay.
they're seeing that there's a gap, and they're looking for funding, looking to develop a program to support that, and then ask for appropriations from the government to fund.
From the state?
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Okay, so as it inches closer to 9 o'clock, let's,
Yeah.
so we have a motion to add a seventh goal, to identify new sources of, rental assistance funding in 2024. Did we we got a second to that?
Second.
Okay, can we have that's just a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and then, can we have a roll call on the 7 goals?
Mayor Ravel,
Aye.
Councilmember Byrne.
Aye.
Councilmember Herakari.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Joanne Salome.
Aye.
Kathy Feingold.
Aye.
Lauren Berlin.
Aye.
Chloe Thurston.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Great, okay, thank you. Now we have, the 2024 action plan needs and priorities. And we have a chart in our packet on page page 30, yep.
There was a chart in your packet that you may hopefully be getting more and more familiar with as time passes on, which generally kind of summarize in a quick snapshot what's included in, the draft action plan that we also shared with the committee, has been posted, on the website, is open for public comment, is at libraries, and ready for everybody to review and comment on. So essentially what we're talking about is we have our consolidated plan priorities, going back to the HUD process now and the very kind of little narrow niche of conversation around the use of those funds. That's a 5-year plan, that's 2020 to 2024. We're in our last stretch of this plan, and we're working towards the goal that we're approved and discussed as part of this plan. Next year will be major work and conversation around the next consolidated plan, which we'll be calling the HUD plan, to make sure everybody's not getting confused with the comprehensive plan, which is also called the comp plan.
Okay.
Within the consolidated plan, affordable housing and homelessness, create livable communities, public services, which is not discussed by this committee, and economic development are key goals, with the section that you have on this slide. And if you wanna go to the next slide, what we have for 2024 is essentially we're looking at fairly conservative estimate of CDBG. When we initially started working on the consolidated plan, we were estimating CDBG closer to $1,650,000 plus program income. We've seen that those funds are lowering every year. So this year we're going with 155 with the hope that we'll get more,
We'll get a
but
surprise.
we just can't count on it at this point.
Right.
Program income is $143,000, and that's usually what we've received this year, what we project to get this year, that will be used next year. And that's usually, loan repayment from the CDBG Housing Rehab, program that kind of funds this program and sustain that program. ESG and home have also been estimated conservatively. There was some conversation about potential cuts to the home programs. We're kind of waiting to see what happens with the budget conversation with Congress, but as of right now, we're kind of keeping it conservative but steady. CDBG Public Service is fairly stable. We are following the guideline, the 15% maximum, so there's really not a ton of changes. It really depends on how much funds we expect, and kind of, we usually put it at 15%. So we're not expecting too much changes there, which is a happy development. And then we do have some CDBG CV funds that are left. We'll be discussing and proposing next month the use of those funds for a park improvement. It's about $250,000 because there's some leftover funds as well as unspent administrative funds. There is a lot of restriction as to how we can use those funds. So it's a little tricky. There was, I understand Sue was mentioning prior to this, the conversation of using it for rent assistance. We've used a good chunk of those funds for rent assistance. What we found as that time went on, it was extremely difficult to be able to prove the COVID link. Those funds aren't like, you can do anything with it, it's rent assistance. You have to really show that you're preparing for a COVID response or you're responding to an impact from COVID. And for rent assistance, it's quite tricky. Next slide, please. Additional things to consider, what we're looking at right now is we're talking about the allocation on estimates of 2024 entitlement and associated program income use. That doesn't encompasses all the use because we have remaining funds for previous year that we're also going to be discussing. That's not in your chart, and it's not necessarily including in the action plan as far as certain goals or certain accomplishment, because those funds were already allocated in previous years with associated accomplishment, but it's still going to be done potentially, and they're mentioned in the narratives of the draft action plan. Those projects include the nonprofit public facilities improvement application that you'll be reviewing in January and February, and that's using past year's funding, so that's not here in your chart. There is also what you're seeing here under livable community goals, was the mention of funding for alley paving. We used the numbers that was matching the two alleys that you had, approved previously and decided to prioritize. So there can be some discussion there as far as what's possible or not, and we can provide some feedback as to why we chose to do it this way. But essentially, those alleys were, items that were already discussed and approved by the committee, not yet funded. And then, as I was mentioning before, there's that park improvement project which will be discussing next grant meeting, which is 12/12. And that's some CV and some priority funding. So that's on the slide there. As far as affordable housing, currently on the chart, you may see that there's nothing that's been allocated for housing rehab admin, which is essentially the projects, the construction management, and anything related to a housing rehab. And there's some funding allocated to housing rehab RL, which is revolving loan, to fund the actual construction costs. The $143,000 is the program income that we keep getting from the program that we're gonna be continuing to allocate this year. We're suggesting not to allocate money towards this program because we're already having some funds from prior year that we haven't expended yet. And on top of that, we're also gonna get, I know I keep saying this, I promise at some point it will happen, we're working on it, the NSP2 transfer of program income, which is an additional $147,000. I think we've talked about it probably 10 times this year. We're happy to report that we've gotten some news from HUD around that. There is some movement. They're working on closing out this program. We're hopeful. It's coming. Sure. But, so that's gonna hit the program, and it's gonna be additional, funding to, and that's specific, you, approved already that this is going into the, housing rehab program. So this is why we don't really necessarily have a ton of fund for this year's entitlement going to housing rehab. We have funding already from other sources. And then we talked already from the private conversation that, we're hoping to be able to include multifamily rentals, in the housing rehab program. So that's part of that. And then, there's the use of home funds. Home funds is usually split between home TBRA, which is, tenant-based rental assistance under the homelessness goal, and then affordable housing goal, which is usually for bricks and sticks development. We have some funds allocated there. Those projects are usually taking quite a while to come together and usually take multiple years of funding cobbled together to move through. That includes funding that would potentially go to the, we call it the HODC project, but that's the Church Street project that we've discussed previously. It's not included in the goal because if it moves forward, it's not gonna be completed this year. So while we may use some of those funds, that cannot be included in this year because they're, what else can I tell you? I think I've covered most of it. One of the things we'll talk about next meeting is the specific allocation, of CDBG under livable community goals. I've talked about the alley, there's about $500,000. We're suggesting only $100,000 for sidewalk. Part of that is because, we've discussed how with Public Works, get up the need and what their capacity is. They don't have much more capacity than that, even if we wanted to split funds different, for sidewalk. Any questions?
I guess mine was just of why the lower numbers, but you're just estimating what the feds will do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we have to be conservative, because we don't wanna bank on funds that we're not gonna get. So, that's why you're approving estimates, what you're approving the allocation on is the percentage.
Right.
We're not approving $500,000 of CDBG for affordable housing, we're approving 30% of the entitlement.
Right.
For, so that can change, and if we get more money, then it will be allocated accordingly. And if there's major changes, we'll come back to the committee as well. And that slide, that slide is just, support.
Yep. So,
You can go back.
questions or comments from the committee?
Somebody has their hand up.
But I think we established his as permanent
Oh,
on that,
okay.
on that screen for some.
So I don't think we ever had a motion. Can I have a motion to approve the,
So you're not approving them just yet?
okay.
We're approving them next month.
Oh, okay, I
This
thought,
is just a prep for you to
okay.
understand,
Oh, good, I thought there was,
what we're
I
discussing
thought we
next
had to have a
month.
motion. Okay, okay, well,
The draft action plan is
okay,
a pretty
got it.
hefty document.
Right, okay,
So we always try to give you context as to
Great.
why exactly is
Mhm.
what's
right,
in the plan.
okay, well, we'll be,
And
yeah, go on.
I'm sorry, I know you've mentioned, I'm sorry to.
No, that's okay.
So this is the one, this will be discussed on the 12th.
Yep,
Okay, this is that, okay.
we're your regular programming.
We're your regular per,
Right,
got it.
right, yeah.
Not the cable streaming.
Yeah, so next meeting, we're hoping that you will have time to review the document
Right.
and have enough context. You can obviously ask questions during this time. We're hoping we'll have some public comment or feedback.
Mhm.
We'll have a public comment session during the meeting as well, specifically for the draft action plan. We'll discuss initially this allocation, a little bit more quickly because we've covered it today. We have all the presentation from the application for, the alleys, the sidewalk, housing rehab, code enforcement to approve, so they can start work January 1st. And then we'll
Got it.
generally approve the plan.
Got it.
Got it, okay. Well, thank you for that, and then we move on, we have, nomination, we need to, elect a vice chair for the committee for the year, for 2024.
Yes, so, we have one nominee, I'm gonna ask, that was in my email, so I will ask the committee to, have the opportunity to provide other nomination. They can do that right now, if anybody would like to nominate anyone.
Yeah,
you're
I'm
welcome to.
curious, is the past vice chair seeking the nomination again?
No, she's not.
Okay. I'd be interested in. I don't know who else requested.
Sure. Joanne Zolmi has, expressed interest, and we can, of the committee, discuss, how they would like to proceed. We need at some point to get to a vote to a vice chair, so.
And I think it's nice to give a role to our non-council members.
Yes.
I thought.
Is it,
All
is
right.
it
I nominate Joanne Salome, or I don't know, whoever nominated her, and so I'll move that.
Okay, great. We have a second?
Second. Who gets
Yeah.
to be in the minutes, we'll see.
Right, yeah, right, yeah. Okay, well, that would be wonderful. Joanne, if you'd like to, if you're willing to do that. And, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
For your
yeah, thank you,
nomination.
Joanne. And thank you, Kathy, for serving for 2 years.
Yes, thank
as
you.
vice chair, that was great. Okay, and now we have a staff update from Anna, I think, about the small, medium landlord.
Yes, I'll try to be brief.
Mm-hmm.
I'm presenting the program project closure report for the small, medium landlord program
Mm-hmm.
that was approved back in February. As you remember, this was to offset, net income loss for small to medium landlords up to 35 units, ineligible census tracts. The eligible census tracts that we initially, approved were 8092, 8102, and 8103.01.
Mhm.
And in August, the census tract it was approved to be expanded to 8095, 8096, 8097, and 8101. We have received far less applications than we were initially expecting. We were expecting 70 applications, and we received 30. Of those 30, 15 were approved. 4 of those were of the full amount, which was $15,000. and 15 were not approved. And that was because they did not meet one or more of the eligibility criteria. So some of them were outside of the eligible census tracts. Some did not incur a loss between 2019 and 2021, and/or they had more than 35 units. So they were not the small or medium landlords. However, most of the applications that we received were from the initial 3 census tracts. We only received 3 applications after the expansion, and only 2 of those were approved. So all of that to say, in the memo, we have the total eligible amount was $118,659.75, which as of today, they have all been dispersed. So our last landlord picked up their check today, so. And the average funding amount was $7,910.65. So that leaves us with $375,988.25 in ARPA funds that can be made available for other city programs to be funded. So this is a request to accept and then place in file the closeout report.
Okay, we have a motion to,
So moved.
okay, second. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Vote no. Oopsie, sorry. Go
okay,
go ahead.
I just want to make sure that the motion was to accept and place on file. Aye.
Yeah, the motion was made.
Yep. Okay.
And I think in the process, we learned a lot, we meaning Anna probably, learned a lot about our landlord, community, and, established some important relationships for, going forward, so.
Yes, the majority of the applicants were less than 5 units that were approved. So that was a nice surprise. Only one of them had more than 9 units. So it was the very small landlords that were benefited. Even though we had lower turnout of applications than we expected, the ones that we helped, just anecdotally press that this really helped them navigate losses that they would have not been able to recuperate. And it meant being able to continue providing affordable housing. So they were all very grateful from what I heard.
Great, thanks, yeah. All right, I think we're ready to, adjourn, and, so.
I just want to make one
Oh,
comment.
sure, Joanne.
Yeah, just quick. I met with Lindsay, about
right.
the Just Cause and the football, and we had a good conversation.
Mhm.
But during the conversation, it came to light, I, as a Realtor, have a definition of 6 units or under as one building. Her definition was a landlord with 6 or fewer units.
It
So
would
I
be more
think
than one
we
building.
need, no matter how many buildings, and so I'm there, whoa, that just really shocked me. So we need to make sure we're talking about the same thing as we proceed.
Okay,
No.
okay, right.
Yeah, I mean, that
Thank
happened
you.
tonight, right? We all understood naturally occurring affordable housing to mean different things.
Right,
So
yeah.
true.
Yeah,
You're right,
yeah,
the terms
right.
can,
So
Right.
I was so surprised.
Yeah, right. So we have it'll be a big discussion, I believe. Our next, special meeting, Thursday, November 30th, 6:30 PM, to talk about the just cause eviction provisions, the relocation assistance provision, and, we'll see, and we'll probably be in the council chambers, do you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and that's 6:30 to 10.
Chair, are you going
I
to be at that meeting?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
I believe the intent is to try, I can't remember if it's 9:30 or 10 o'clock, but the intent is to try to have a block of time to make sure the committee can go through as much as possible and not have, essentially.
Yeah, so we'll have, limited time for public comment, and then we will dig into our conversation among ourselves. Well, and we've gotten a ton of public comment,
We have.
already, so, everybody can digest that before our meeting. Okay. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
And you can expect all the meetings to be, when it comes to grants, to be here, and when it comes to any other topic, to be in city council.
Okay, yeah.
So,
Anna, I'm
I'm just
sorry.
thinking of.
I walked out, I did not mean to be rude.
No.
Okay, I just wanted
And I
to catch
haven't
her
been
real
up
fast.
Yeah, no problem. But I have.
Thank you.
Sorry. Free flat on Dewey. And the neighbors, something,